Chapter 4 of Book 4 of Les Misérables, Volume 3, by Victor Hugo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Bruce Peary. Les Misérables, Volume 3, by Victor Hugo. Translated by Isabel, Florence HAPGOOD. Book 4, The Friends of the ABC. Chapter 4, The Back Room of the Café Mise. One of the conversations among the young men at which Marius was present and in which he sometimes joined, was a veritable shock to his mind. This took place in the back room of the Café Mise. Nearly all of the friends of the ABC had convened that evening. The argand lamp was solemnly lighted. They talked of one thing and another, without passion and with noise. With the exception of Enjolras and Marius, who held their peace, all were haranguing rather at haphazard. Conversations between comrades sometimes are subject to these peaceable tumults. It was a game and an uproar as much as a conversation. They tossed words to each other and caught them up in turn. They were chattering in all quarters. No woman was admitted to this back room, except Louison, the dishwasher of the café, who passed through it from time to time to go to her washing in the lavatory. Grantaire, thoroughly drunk, was deafening the corner of which he had taken possession, reasoning and contradicting at the top of his lungs, and shouting, "I am thirsty! Mortals! I am dreaming that the tun of Heidelberg has an attack of apoplexy, and that I am one of the dozen leeches which will be applied to it. I want a drink. I desire to forget life. Life is a hideous invention of I know not whom. It lasts no time at all, and is worth nothing. One breaks one's neck in living. Life is a theatre set in which there are but few practicable entrances. Happiness is an antique reliquary, painted on one side only. Ecclesiastes says all is vanity. I agree with that good man, who never existed, perhaps. Zero, not wishing to go stark naked, clothed himself in vanity. Oh, vanity! The patching up of everything with big words. A kitchen is a laboratory. A dancer is a professor. An acrobat is a gymnast. A boxer is a pugilist. An apothecary is a chemist. A wig-maker is an artist. A hodman is an architect. A jockey is a sportsman. A woodlouse is a terrigibranche. Vanity has a right and a wrong side. The right side is stupid. It is the Negro with his glass beads. The wrong side is foolish. It is the philosopher with his rags. I weep over the one, and I laugh over the other. What are called honours and dignities, and even dignity and honour, are generally of pinchbeck. Kings make playthings of human pride. Caligula made a horse a consul. Charles II made a knight of a sirloin. Wrap yourself up now, then, between consul incitatus and baronet roast beef. As for the intrinsic value of people, it is no longer respectable in the least. Listen to the panegyric which neighbour makes of neighbour. White on white is ferocious. If the lily could speak, what a setting down it would give the dove. A bigoted woman prating of a devout woman is more venomous than the asp and the cobra. It is a shame that I am ignorant. Otherwise I would quote to you a mass of things, but I know nothing. For instance, I have always been witty. When I was a pupil of Gros, instead of daubing wretched little pictures, I passed my time in pilfering apples. Rapin is the masculine of rapine. So much for myself. As for the rest of you, you are worth no more than I am. I scoff at your perfections, excellencies, and qualities. Every good quality tends towards a defect. Economy borders on avarice. The generous man is next door to the prodigal. The brave man rubs elbows with the braggart. He who says very pious says a trifle bigoted. There are just as many vices in virtue as there are holes in Diogenes' cloak. Whom do you admire, the slain or the slayer, Caesar or Brutus? Generally, men are in favour of the slayer. Long live Brutus, he has slain. There lies the virtue. Virtue granted, but madness also. There are queer spots on those great men. The Brutus who killed Caesar was in love with the statue of a little boy. This statue was from the hand of the Greek sculptor Strongyllion, who also carved that figure of an Amazon known as the Beautiful Leg, Eucnemos, which Nero carried with him in his travels. This Strongyllion left but 2 statues, which placed Nero and Brutus in accord. Brutus was in love with the one, Nero with the other. All history is nothing but wearisome repetition. One century is the plagiarist of the other. The battle of Marengo copies the battle of Pydna. The Tolbiac of Clovis and the Austerlitz of Napoleon are as like each other as 2 drops of water. I don't attach much importance to victory. Nothing is so stupid as to conquer. True glory lies in convincing. But try to prove something. If you are content with success, what mediocrity! And with conquering, what wretchedness! Alas, vanity and cowardice everywhere. Everything obeys success, even grammar. Si volet usus, says Horace. Therefore, I disdain the human race. Shall we descend to the party at all? Do you wish me to begin admiring the peoples? What people, if you please? Shall it be Greece? The Athenians, those Parisians of days gone by, slew Phocion, as we might say Coligny, and fawned upon tyrants to such an extent that Anicephorus said of Pisistratus, his urine attracts the bees. The most prominent man in Greece for 50 years was that grammarian Philetus, who was so small and so thin that he was obliged to load his shoes with lead in order not to be blown away by the wind. There stood on the great square in Corinth a statue carved by Silanion and catalogued by Pliny. This statue represented Episthenes. What did Episthenes do? He invented a trip. That sums up Greece and glory. Let us pass on to others. Shall I admire England? Shall I admire France? France? Why? Because of Paris? I've just told you my opinion of Athens. England? Why? Because of London? I hate Carthage. And then, London, the metropolis of luxury, is the headquarters of wretchedness. There are 100 deaths a year of hunger in the parish of Charing Cross alone. Such is Albion. I add, as the climax, that I have seen an Englishwoman dancing in a wreath of roses and blue spectacles. A fig, then, for England. If I do not admire John Bull, shall I admire brother Jonathan? I have but little taste for that slave-holding brother. Take away time is money, what remains of England? Take away cotton is king, and what remains of America? Germany is the lymph. Italy is the bile. Shall we go into ecstasies over Russia? Voltaire admired it. He also admired China. I admit that Russia has its beauties, among others a stout despotism, but I pity the despots. Their health is delicate. A decapitated Alexis, a poignarded Peter, a strangled Paul, another Paul crushed flat with kicks, divers Ivans strangled with their throats cut, numerous Nicholases and Basils poisoned, all this indicates that the palace of the emperors of Russia is in a condition of flagrant insalubrity. All civilized peoples offer this detail to the admiration of the thinker. War. Now, war, civilized war, exhausts and sums up all the forms of ruffianism, from the brigandage of the Trabuceros in the gorges of Mount Jaxa to the marauding of the Comanche Indians in the Doubtful Pass. Bah, you will say to me, but Europe is certainly better than Asia. I admit that Asia is a farce, but I do not precisely see what you find to laugh at in the Grand Lama, you peoples of the West who have mingled with your fashions and your elegances all the complicated filth of majesty, from the dirty chemise of Queen Isabella to the chamber chair of the Dauphin. Gentlemen of the human race, I tell you, not a bit of it. It is at Brussels that the most beer is consumed, at Stockholm the most brandy, at Madrid the most chocolate, at Amsterdam the most gin, at London the most wine, at Constantinople the most coffee, at Paris the most absinthe. These are all the useful notions. Paris carries the day, in short. In Paris even the rag-pickers are sybarites. Diogenes would have loved to be a rag-picker of the Place Maubert better than to be a philosopher at the Piraeus. Learn this in addition. The wine shops of the rag-pickers are called bibines. The most celebrated are the Saucepan and the Slaughter-house. Hence, tea-gardens, goguettes, cabelots, boui-boui, mastroquets, basringues, manazangs, bibines of the rag-pickers, caravanseries of the caliphs. I certify to you, I am a voluptuary. I eat at Richard's at 40 sous a head. I must have Persian carpets to roll naked Cleopatra in. Where is Cleopatra? Ah, so it is you, Louison. Good day. Thus did Grantaire, more than intoxicated, launch into speech, catching at the dish-washer in her passage from his corner in the back room of the Café Musain. Bossuet, extending his hand towards him, tried to impose silence on him, and Grantaire began again, worse than ever. "Aigle de Meaux, down with your paws! You produce on me no effect with your gesture of Hippocrates refusing Artaxerxes' bric-a-brac. I excuse you from the task of soothing me. Moreover, I am sad. What do you wish me to say to you? Man is evil, man is deformed. The butterfly is a success. Man is a failure. God made a mistake with that animal. A crowd offers a choice of ugliness. The first comer is a wretch. Femme, woman, rhymes with infâme, infamous. Yes, I have the spleen complicated with melancholy, with homesickness, plus hypochondria, and I am vexed, and I rage, and I yawn, and I am bored, and I am tired to death, and I am stupid. Let God go to the devil." "Silence, then, capital R," resumed Bossuet, who was discussing a point of law behind the scenes, and who was plunged more than waist high in a phrase of judicial slang, of which this is the conclusion. "And as for me, although I am hardly a legist, and at the most an amateur attorney, I maintain this, that in accordance with the terms of the customs of Normandy, at Saint Michel, and for each year, an equivalent must be paid to the profit of the lord of the manor, saving the rights of others, and by all and several, the proprietors as well as those seized with inheritance, and that, for all emphyteuses, leases, freeholds, contracts of domain, mortgages—" "Echo, plaintive nymph," hummed Grantaire. Near Grantaire, an almost silent table, a sheet of paper, an inkstand, and a pen between two glasses of brandy, announced that a vaudeville was being sketched out. This great affair was being discussed in a low voice, and the two heads at work touched each other. "Let us begin by finding names. When one has the names, one finds the subject." "That is true. Dictate, I will write." "Monsieur Dorimon." "An independent gentleman?" "Of course." "His daughter?" "Célestine." What next?" "Colonel Saint-Val." "Saint-Val is stale. I should say Valsin." Beside the vaudeville aspirants, another group, which was also taking advantage of the uproar to talk low, was discussing a duel. An old fellow of 30 was counselling a young one of 18, and explaining to him what sort of an adversary he had to deal with. "The deuce! Look out for yourself. He is a fine swordsman. His play is neat. He has the attack, no wasted feints, wrist, dash, lightning, a just parade, mathematical parries. Bigre! And he is left-handed." In the angle opposite Grantaire, Joly and Bahorel were playing dominoes and talking of love. "You are in luck, that you are," Joly was saying. "You have a mistress who is always laughing." "That is a fault of hers," returned Bahorel. "One's mistress does wrong to laugh. That encourages one to deceive her. To see her gay removes your remorse. If you see her sad, your conscience pricks you." "Ingrate! A woman who laughs is such a good thing. And you never quarrel." "That is because of the treaty which we have made. On forming our little holy alliance, we assigned ourselves each our frontier, which we never cross. What is situated on the side of winter belongs to Vaud, on the side of the wind to Gex. Hence the peace." "Peace is happiness digesting." "And you, Joly, where do you stand in your entanglement with Mamselle? You know whom I mean." "She sulks at me with cruel patience." "Yet you are a lover to soften the heart with gauntness." "Alas!" "In your place I would let her alone." "That is easy enough to say." "And to do. Is not her name Musiquette?" "Yes. Ah, my poor Bahorel, she is a superb girl, very literary, with tiny feet, little hands. She dresses well, and is white and dimpled, with the eyes of a fortune-teller. I am wild over her." "My dear fellow, then in order to please her, you must be elegant, and produce effects with your knees. Buy a good pair of trousers of double-milled cloth at Staub's. That will assist." "At what price?" shouted Grantaire. The third corner was delivered up to a poetical discussion. Pagan mythology was giving battle to Christian mythology. The question was about Olympus, whose part was taken by Jean Prouvaire out of pure romanticism. Jean Prouvaire was timid only in repose. Once excited, he burst forth, a sort of mirth accentuated his enthusiasm, and he was at once both laughing and lyric. "Let us not insult the gods," said he. "The gods may not have taken their departure. Jupiter does not impress me as dead. The gods are dreams, you say? Well, even in nature, such as it is today, after the flight of these dreams, we still find all the grand old pagan myths. Such and such a mountain with the profile of a citadel, like the Vigne Male, for example, is still to me the headdress of Cybele. It has not been proved to me that Pan does not come at night to breathe into the hollow trunks of the willows, stopping up the holes in turn with his fingers, and I have always believed that Io had something to do with the cascade of Pisvache." In the last corner they were talking politics. The charter which had been granted was getting roughly handled. Combeferre was upholding it weakly. Courfeyrac was energetically making a breach in it. On the table lay an unfortunate copy of the famous Touquet Charter. Courfeyrac had seized it and was brandishing it, mingling with his arguments the rattling of this sheet of paper. "In the first place, I won't have any kings. If it were only from an economical point of view, I don't want any. A king is a parasite. One does not have kings gratis. Listen to this: the dearness of kings. At the death of Francois I, the national debt of France amounted to an income of 30,000 livres. At the death of Louis XIV, it was 2 milliards, 600 millions, at 28 livres the mark, which was equivalent in 1760, according to Desmarais, to 4 milliards, 500 millions, which would today be equivalent to 12 milliards. In the second place, and no offense to Combeferre, a charter granted is but a poor expedient of civilization. To save the transition, to soften the passage, to deaden the shock, to cause the nation to pass insensibly from the monarchy to democracy by the practice of constitutional fictions. What detestable reasons all those are! No, no, let us never enlighten the people with false daylight. Principles dwindle and pale in your constitutional cellar. No illegitimacy, no compromise, no grant from the king to the people. In all such grants there is an Article 14. By the side of the hand which gives, there is the claw which snatches back. I refuse your charter point blank. A charter is a mask. The lie lurks beneath it. A people which accepts a charter abdicates. The law is only the law when entire. No, no charter. It was winter. A couple of faggots were crackling in the fireplace. This was tempting, and Courfeyrac could not resist. He crumpled the poor Touquet Charter in his fist and flung it in the fire. The paper flashed up. Combeferre watched the masterpiece of Louis XVIII burn philosophically, and contented himself with saying, "The Charter metamorphosed into flame." And sarcasms, sallies, jests, that French thing which is called entrain, and that English thing which is called humour, good and bad taste, good and bad reasons, all the wild pyrotechnics of dialogue, mounting together and crossing from all points of the room, produced a sort of merry bombardment over their heads. End of Book 4, Chapter 4.